Music is everywhere. It's in the radio you listen to on your way to school, the speakers at your friend's party, even the TV show you watch at home. But have you ever stopped to think about where music came from? Like why do we make music or how did it evolve over time? Well, let's take a journey through time and find out. So the earliest forms of music probably started with our earliest ancestors in Africa. They lived in small groups and would make music by clapping, stomping, and eventually using instruments made from natural materials like bones and animal skins. This type of music was an important part of their culture and they used it for rituals, celebrations, and to tell stories. As humans migrated around the world, they developed new instruments and musical styles. In Asia, for example, the Chinese invented the guqin, a type of harp, and used it to play music that was often based on nature. Meanwhile, in India, the veena, a stringed instrument, became popular and was used in religious ceremonies. In ancient Greece, music was a big deal. The Greeks believed that music could influence people's emotions and behavior. They had a bunch of different musical modes or scales that they used to express different feelings. For example, Dorian mode was used for tragedies and Lydian mode was used for comedies. They also developed a system for tuning their instruments that became the basis for musical tuning systems around the world. Now let's travel across the sea to ancient Rome. Roman music was heavily influenced by Greek music, but they also incorporated elements of other cultures, like the Egyptian. You see, when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, there was this fusion of cultures and it influenced the music. One famous Roman composer, Cornelius, traveled to Egypt and was so inspired by what he heard that he wrote a piece called The Egyptian. It was super popular in ancient Rome, but it wasn't just about copying other cultures. Romans also created their own unique music. They had a genre of music called cantus firmus, which was a monophonic music with a very simple melody that was repeated over and over again. And the melodies were usually based on folk songs or religious hymns. Fast forward a few centuries and we arrive at the Middle Ages in Europe. During this time, most music was still religious in nature and was performed by monks and clergy. They sang in Latin and the music was highly structured and didn't have much variation. However, there was a new development, polyphony, which is when you have multiple melodies happening at once. This created a richer, more complex sound and it became very popular. And let's not forget about the troubadours and minnesingers. These guys were like the rock stars of the Middle Ages. They were traveling musicians who composed and performed secular music, meaning non-religious music. They often sang about love and their music was a major part of courtly love. Now let's skip ahead to the Renaissance. This was a time of great change and exploration and music was no exception. Composers like Palestrina and William Byrd were experimenting with new sounds and techniques and they were also writing music for a wider range of occasions. Madrigals became super popular and these were like little stories set to music and they were performed in palaces and noble homes. The Baroque period followed and this was a time of big, dramatic music. Think of the composers like Bach and Handel. They wrote music for large orchestras and choirs and the music was full of emotion and energy. It was used in operas, which were like theatrical performances with music and also in public concerts. And then came the classical period with composers like Mozart and Beethoven. The music of this time was more balanced and less dramatic than the Baroque period, but it was still very emotional. It was during this time that the symphony and the sonata form took off, and these are like musical structures that composers used to organize their music. Now let's fast forward to the Romantic period. This was a time of nationalism and individualism, and the music of this time reflects that. Composers like Chopin and Berlioz expressed their national identity through their music, and they also explored their own emotions and feelings. Program music was also popular during this time, and that is when the music is supposed to evoke a particular image or tell a story. In the 20th century, music got even more experimental. Composers like Stravinsky and Schoenberg broke the rules and experimented with new sounds and harmonies. Electronic music was invented, and there was a huge explosion of jazz and popular music. Music became more of a business, and there were recording studios and music labels and everything. And here we are in the 21st century. Music is everywhere, and there are so many different genres and styles. But no matter what kind of music you like, you can be sure that it has a rich history that goes back thousands of years. So the next time you put on your favorite song, take a moment to appreciate the long and winding road that it took to get to your ears. From the ancient Greeks to the digital age, music has come a long way, and it continues to evolve and change. So who knows what the future holds for music? But one thing is for sure, it will continue to be an important part of our lives. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about music, there are some great resources online. You can learn about music theory, how to compose your own music, or even how to play an instrument. So go explore and discover the wonderful world of music. If you love good music and real emotions, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the MDAK music family where every voice matters and every beat has a story.